without further ado, I think. Well, I've actually been recording for ages because I just pressed the button just to make sure I didn't forget to press it. Which means it's this. I'm so pleased about this. I have been looking forward to this one actually a lot because for a variety of reasons, not least, in fact. For all sorts of reasons. I'm going to talk about those after the introduction. I'm very excited, everyone. But first, before we speak to Luke, who's joined us and is going to talk about... well, I've titled the episode Perfection and Imperfection on the Underground, but there's going to be plenty more to this episode. We'll talk more about that. However, before we do that, we must talk about the British Rail Class 155. This is episode 155, and so we've been going through the British Rail trains of the associated numbers, and we're on the 155, which is a bit of a weird creature because most of them got chopped in half and turned into one-car units. So they had a pretty unceremonious demise, apart from a few that remained around Leeds intact. And they also ended up with this like sprinter sort of picture thing. There's sort of this weird like little image on it that has like also the BR logo is a bit thin. Basically, regional railways went AWOL at this point. They absolutely lost the plot. But I still quite like the grey, blue, white, and blue livery. It's kind of nice. But anyway, the 155, everyone, coming to a regional railway station near you 30 years ago. Right, on that bomb, Luke is here. We're going to get cracking on this show. Everyone, we're going to be talking about some rather fantastic artistry very soon. Welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. As the In-City 225 fades away. So for a variety, so Luke Agbaimoni is here, and we're gonna and this is nice for all sorts of reasons. One of them being that Luke was one of our first guests on the show. In fact, so this is the last episode was episode 23, which is in August 2020, where we talked about the Tube Mapper project. We talked about book number 1. Let's get Luke. Luke Agbaimoni is here, everyone. Luke Agbaimoni.
Hello, everyone.
Looking very dapper in a sensational hat.
It's become my trademark. I mean, nice. I do love trilby hats, and I suppose
very
you
smart.
Have to have...
And the feather is nice.
And I quite like it. So when I'm out taking photos, I like it because I stand out. Yeah. So it doesn't look like I'm being inconspicuous. It looks like
that's a good point. It's not a see it, say it, sorted situation because you're there like almost waving your hand, saying, "Look at me, I'm here taking photos, but not shiftily." Yeah.
Can you imagine if I had like giant feathers coming out?
Yeah. Well, it might happen. Your feathers might start getting bigger as you like them. As you spot feathers, you start liking your like tolerance of feather size might start increasing, and they might start enlarging. No, it's Luke. It's so lovely to have you back on Rail Natter. Yeah. So last time it was book 1, right? It was the first book of the Tube Mapper project. You know, and we went through. It was such a lovely episode. We just went through the images. We talked about things that read, some of the aesthetic sublimes that we just enjoy encountering in a transport setting, and what a delight that for. I also, Luke, I've used your sort of subheading as last time, but actually, as you sort of said in in kind of the warm up to this, you're like digital designer, author, photographer, acrobat, juggler, tightrope walker. What are these other things? What are these other things you've been up to, adding to your resume?
Well, generally, I suppose the easiest thing would be artist. In my youth, that's what I wanted to be, but I have children now, and I just don't have time to paint. So I got into photography sort of in my 30s, and it's just a quicker way of sort of producing stuff. Although it still takes ages, you still have.
So you say that, but I know that you'll be spending a lot of time just waiting for the perfect train movement, just waiting for the right angle and the.
It's like fishing, but I suppose the train spotters will agree with that as well. For them, it's like fishing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If they're looking for the particular rolling stock or the particular photo, if you're like yourself a railway, well, you're more than a railway photographer, but people who are specific like railway photographers trying to catch the particular stock, they're out hunting, looking for the right moment. just to have like a train pass in front of Flying Scotsman or whatever it is. There's whatever it is. They're waiting there for their beautiful Flying Scotsman, then an LNER thing like goes past and just ruins the shot. Anyway, enough of my waffling. We are. How have you been, Luke? It's been So what? August 2020. So it's been like 2.5 years. Which makes me feel like I don't feel like Rail Natter's that old, but it's been going for ages now.
It is, and it has been. Congratulations on going it. It's one thing to start a YouTube channel, but it's another thing to keep it going, because there'll be times when it's hard. So yeah, congratulations on that. It's very good, and you have you have a good variety of guests on and stuff like that. So it's good fun.
Yeah, we've not had a nice one where we just indulgently enjoy some of the beauty and interest and fascination of the visual fascination of.
Well, that's the good thing about having me on here. Like I whenever I do like sometimes I will do talks to like ex TfL staff or real train nerds. They always come in and I say, look, there's a caveat here. I am a pedestrian. I come in as a pedestrian with eyes of a pedestrian, enjoying the underground, enjoying the architecture, enjoying the machinery. And yes, I do know some of the by osmosis I have sucked in.
Yeah, you can't avoid it. You've been doing it long enough now.
Yeah, I've sucked in some of the details, but I still say I'm a pedestrian.
But that's one of many reasons why I enjoyed our last episode so much. Is that actually that eye that you have is something that's so deeply familiar to, in the case of underground stuff, to Londoners or people who travel through London. And it's the familiar, it's the comfortable, it's the beautiful, it's the stuff that makes you go, oh, I like this space. And actually, that, as much as beauty is absolutely wonderful to enjoy for beauty's sake alone, it's also important from a transport perspective, because transport spaces should be appealing, nice places, visually appealing, engaging places to be. And I think we maybe get into a habit of forgetting that in the transport world, or the policymaking world. We forget that actually public transport should be an enjoyable, visually appealing space process.
It should
right?
be. If you see, it's like having a tidy house. Not them.
Yeah,
it's very tidy here. But if you consider it as, if you come into a space and it looks well in order, then you treat it with the respect that it kind of deserves. And you go, this place looks nice, let's treat it nice.
Yeah, and it helps with the collective experience of public transport, right? If it's a nice space, then all of you and your fellow passengers are enjoying that experience together. And that's part of what I enjoy about public transport, is that you kind of every adventure you go on, you've got a bunch of adventure buddies with you, and their adventures might be slightly different. They might be going to slightly different places, but you're all kind of sharing bits of this adventure together. And I like that about public transport. Anyway, we could talk about aesthetics and sublimes. Well, indeed, we are going to for another hour, but we should do so with visual prompting of as last time. You've very kindly sent through a high resolution sample of some of the images that people can. By the way, I'm enjoying that both here and also there are copies of book number 2, which I'll be fishing down at the end when we give it the wholehearted plug. However, from the book, you've very kindly sent us some images. So if I miniaturize our faces into the corner, there's a chance for us to go through and look at some images. Now, I hope you don't mind our faces being in the corner, because we are interrupting this sublime slightly, but hopefully we don't mind too much, because these are in no particular order. So you sent a lovely section of images. These are in no particular order. But as last time, we will audio describe what we can see and a little bit of the story of the image and the sort of, because this is actually a view. So what is on screen right now is a view through an open gangway train. Can I, as a nerd, work out what the train is? Is it S-Stock? Is it subsurface, or is it... No, it's not. It's London Overground.
Oh, yes.
It's London Overground. So it's the new Capital Star London no, it's not. It's even newer than that. It's whatever the Crossrail trains are, but on London Overground.
Yes,
I think it's
that's
those.
Exactly it.
So what we see on screen is a view perfectly centrally within the train, looking down through the open gangways with the nice framing of the orange handholds and the maquette. And that view on a conveniently straight and level bit of track as well, because of course the open gangway thing is quite fun, because you look down and they wibble all over the place, separate to each other. But this is an image that actually has only started to appear recently, because we haven't had open gangway trains, and the S dock was the first in London, right? So this is actually still a fairly new view to a lot of people.
It's lovely. It's one of those things that it reminds me of the bendy buses. Remember them?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's what I like is if you have the pleasure of standing on one of these, looking down, and I'm trying to think of the location. I think somewhere around New Cross is quite good. When you've got a really sharp turn and you see the train snake across, and it's really hypnotizing watching the movement of this sort of
particularly if you're right at the back of the train and you can see right to the front, so you can see all of them sort of start. You see one go and then another go and then another go and then another go. As a track engineer, I love that, because it's like, it's like my design in action. I can see it happening. It's great. I love that. Yeah. And it's also particularly, as you were describing, when it goes to like a crossover and it snakes. So you're seeing the different bits doing this sort of this little dance. Yeah, it's good fun. But then it's very satisfying then when everything normalizes and straightens up and you're on a straight bit of track and you just see dart straight down the train. Maybe with the odd leg jutting in from people sat in the chairs, right? Yeah, this is very nice. So yeah, I love this. It's lovely framing. In a way, the other good thing about your imagery, particularly your color photography, is in a way it's a proving ground for some of the choices made in the interior design. So here you've got these greys, these kind of off whites, punctuated by the colors of the maquette and the handholds. I think it works. I think this is quite an appealing.
You can see what they're communicating. Like just at a quick glance, like if I were partially sighted, I can see the handrails, I can see my seats, and I can see the middle bar. And they're standing out. I can go on a train. I know exactly where to stand. And so you can see it from an architectural point and a visual point. Like the colors are quite striking. I think, like in this train, it was very clean. It looks a bit like a spaceship, doesn't it?
It does have a very spaceship look to it. You can imagine this thing being like a big vehicle, sort of lifting off up into orbit and disappearing off like a shuttle thing. It really does have that vibe. It's got a very Star Wars sort of vibe to it. Yeah.
I like the sort of metallic panels on each side next to the yellow bars.
Yeah, the little USB charging. Are they USB charging ports? Actually, I'm not sure.
They must. There's something like that. But I really appreciate when the architects and when the designers sort of put them in a symmetrical position. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I was going to say, if for nothing more than the beauty of the image, it's very nice. Yeah, no, it's lovely. And actually, things like advertising. Advertising, which sometimes, quite often in the railways, and not just recently, but historically, back in the 20s and 30s, advertising was bonkers in railway stations. The advertising here is there is advertising. It's placed that people sit and can see it, and great and fine, and there's some income for TfL. But it isn't getting in the way of the stuff, the accessibility that you talked about, the actual visibility for anyone who's partially sighted, and just the general aesthetic of the train. It's not intruding on that, which I think is quite important. I think that, it's useful to have advertising in trains, not least because TfL uses some of that space to advertise stuff, but it's not intrusive. It's to the side. It's not getting in the way of the lines of those visual lines of the train. It's not getting in the way of signage. Not getting in the way of accessibility. It works quite well. Yeah, I think interior-wise, it's a very successful realization of production design, and this photo is marvelous. I like it very much.
Oh, thank you. It was one of my last additions to the book, and I remember sort of taking it, and I instantly was like, yeah, that's it. That's the.
And an emerging theme in these, when I was reshuffling them, is a little bit it ties to what I've titled the episode title, and in a way also what you've described, which is you've titled the book London Underground Symmetry, and I'm looking back, everyone, because the book is behind my shoulder. If you hadn't worked this out already, those in audio only form might have not worked this out. The book is over here, so you're getting some 3D audio of me turning around. The book is titled London Underground Symmetry and Imperfections, and there's a theme that emerges in these images, and symmetry and imperfections, or perfections and imperfections. I like the fact that you've got an image with the symmetry to it, but the not quite perfect things. So the slight scuffing on the white, the little scuff marks here and there. So you have this image that is this symmetrical image, and then the slight, but this is also a functional object. It's a working object. It's got these little imperfections, and I think the imperfections only add to the beauty of the image. I think because you can step back from it and not see them, and then you look and it's like, little this is a lived-in, a used object. I think I really like it. I really like
It's
it.
and it's also what makes you realize it's not a computer-generated AI as well.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it's not got the 6 fingers or the like 7 finger joints or whatever it is that AI images are generating. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was going to say that's a good point. Like that's sadly we're going to reach the point that, and I dare say as a digital artist you will have, and photography, have very strong views on this. But I've got other friends who are digital artists who are all pretty vigorously anti-AI, not just because of the fact that the outcomes are just horrible, but also because it's an abuse of a lot of existing art. It's just like the people have not consented to have their art sort of mangled into contrived AI. Like, there's one thing taking someone else's photograph and, say, manipulating it, doing something interesting with it, posterizing it, Warholing it, whatever. But just an AI machine going through all of your images
it's a long road. At the moment, there's like loads of court cases open, so we'll see what happens.
So some precedents
because it's a sort of new. Whenever there's sort of new things going on, there will be rules and precedents being set in regards to AI and how it works. Because no one owns the copyright to an AI produced image, which also creates problems. It's a very interesting topic. But when I started the symmetry, it did make me think of AI images, and I sort of thought the reason why I called the book Symmetry and Imperfections is because every image is imperfect. There's asymmetry in every symmetrical.
And that's the beauty of it, and that's such a critical thing in all beauty, whether it's beauty of humans or the beauty of objects, the beauty of buildings, the beauty of animal photography, whatever it happens to be, still life. The beauty comes from that balance or the imbalance, the relationships between perfection, imperfection, between symmetry, asymmetry, between the sublime and the asublime. All these interactions are what makes it beautiful, and that's something that AI ain't discovering anytime soon. Because particularly not with the fingers. Anyway, right. So, I love this image, and a wonderful one to kick us off. So I have no idea what the ones are coming at. So we're just working our way through. So this is a very blue image. So the last one was sort of greys, white, off-whites, punctuated by oranges. This image is a very plasticky blue, kind of an image surround. Quite a pleasing little red halo within the paneling.
Oh, I love that.
Which
red
is
halo.
Such a nice effect. I love that.
Ah, yes. I love
and then behind that, just a classic blue, red, and white tube train with its red doors just very nicely lined up. And then, as ever with these images, just a nice little kind of single shade ad in the background, which actually quite nicely adds just a little bit of tonal variety. Again, lovely. But this one's quite sci-fi as well, actually, because you've got that kind of. It's like a bit of a. It's got that the lighting panels are kind of what feel like actually a later addition to the tunnel. I think the plastic walls are probably like kind of what would I guess, like 60s, 70s, and then that lighting is probably from the 2000s. But it's a really nice image. Where is this one? Where is this?
This is actually this is Bank Station. So this was the extension for the Northern Line. So remember they built it quite recently.
Yes. Oh wait, so is this an entirely new bit?
Oh yes.
Oh my goodness. There we go.
And this is why I like it. Because it's it's extension to the Northern Line, and they sort of came up with this sort of strong blue futuristic theme, and I just like it because it's really bold.
It is,
and I like it when they go bold with design.
So I thought this was because it's quite small, this passageway. I guess it's small because might be tying into an old passageway on the other side or something. Because obviously it's a bit of a bodge job, Bank Station. Well, it's a nightmare because it's so complicated. I, for a brief time, was working on the designs for Bank Station. I was doing some checking on them, and so I had hold of the 3D models. And let me tell you, those were fun because they were so complicated.
Is it as complicated as I imagine it would be?
Oh, it's just like I can't think of anything as an analogy for it other than like absolutely
spaghetti on a plate.
Oh perhaps? Yeah, like spaghetti, like trying to organize cooked spaghetti, but like someone's just continuing to throw more of it at you, and it's multicolored. Incredible. So my guesswork as to what this looks like is actually a description of what the designer has ended up creating. But actually, this is
there you
new.
go.
This is a 2010s design. Although, probably late 2000s, because actually the design's quite old for Bank. It's just taken them this long to put it together. But it's quite nice. And there's a variety of, there's all sorts going on here. So you've got that rich blue and the punctuation of the red. I don't know how else to describe. How would you describe the little red reflections in that image? Because I love those. They're so nice.
I think your halo or sort of pulsating red would probably be sort of how I would say
it. It is a halo, isn't it? It's almost like lens flare. It's got that sort of slightly phantasmy type look to it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like when you walk down it, the sort of shininess and the reflection, and it gives you that sort of because I remember this sort of opened at the same time as the Elizabeth line stations were open, and I was just as excited by this as I was by the Elizabeth line. Not taking anything from the Elizabeth line because I think that's a marvel, but we'll probably get into that.
Yeah,
later.
we'll get there. Yeah, no, this is fun, and it's a good point. A lot of people didn't don't realize. Well, people outside of London, I think Londoners probably know what's going on at Bank because it gets in their way a lot of the time. But people outside London don't realize there's just an enormous and highly complex and expensive project going on at Bank to sort of make it work better because it's such a complicated station with really bad passenger flow.
From one end to the other, 45 minutes.
Yeah. It's an enormous complex, and and so they're definitely trying to unpick that, make it safer for passengers moving through the station.
I always list it when someone asks what my favourite station is. One of my default answers is Bank, because I could probably make a book on Bank Station alone.
it's like an underground city in of itself. It's such a complicated little, it's like as complicated as an oil rig, but underground. It
has everything. It has this new bit. It has sort of the older parts of the station. It has it's joined to monuments, so it has all of that. It has travelators, and it has new travelators now, and it has the DLR.
DLR, of course,
It's enormous. It has so much going on.
Yeah, it's. I was enjoying recently, but not recently. Actually, it was probably pre-pandemic. But they were digging around in Bank as often they do, and they had the old DLR. Somehow, the old DLR logo had just appeared on some signage, and I was like, "What's the old logo doing there?" But because they were uncovering panels and digging away at bits, it was good fun. So another very satisfying and vigorously blue image. But what next? Oh, we're talking about halos and about lighting effects. Again, this is not by any design, but we've moved on to the next image. And I like this one a lot. I like this one for all sorts of reasons, but I like this one because
it's the asymmetry, isn't it?
The asymmetry. It's that historical moment because you're captured in time. You've got these two workers in orange in the middle, both with masks on. And they aren't wearing masks because they're doing dust works. They've got masks on because everyone had masks on at the point that you took this photo.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And this image, I love it. It's very nice. They're there doing their work, and they are kind of almost like stained glass shining down onto a pulpit. The sun is kind of shining through the underground roundel and casting this wonderful. It's just a roundel. It's casting the London Underground roundel down onto the grey tiles below their feet, and then their shadows punctuate the image. It's really nice. Tell us about this one and a bit the story behind it.
Yeah, well, I remember when Battersea Power Station, as I call it, opened, and I was really excited by that. And I sort of went through, and it has a really futuristic design, but I was very surprised to go to Nine Elms, which opened at the same time. And I actually loved I preferred Nine Elms. And then the sun shone through the window. I was like, oh my goodness, look at that. And apparently it was considered. People did think it would happen. So it wasn't
okay, they did have yeah.
I've been told. I don't know how true that is, but I have been told. By quite a number of people, so we'll see. Someone who's listening to this might know, actually. So.
Yeah, that's it. Pop your messages in the chat there. Hello, everyone in the chat, by the way. It's lovely. But again, it's capturing. You've got these two workers just going about their day. They're
it's their bright colour, isn't it? It's their bright colour, sort of.
They're in they're in oranges. Yeah, exactly.
With the sort of bright colour of the So we would call that a shadow, wouldn't we? We wouldn't call it a reflection.
Or is the colour reflected? It is a shadow, isn't it? But it's a coloured shadow because it's shining through. Yeah, that's a good. Oh, it's a rare situation. Well, there are plenty of them actually, but it's a situation where the English language doesn't really have enough words to describe this because it's a shadow, but it's a coloured shadow because the sun is shining through a translucent surface. So
Yes.
yeah, it's nice. It's very
There's
nice.
probably a lovely German word for it.
Yeah, the Germans they'll have a word for it. No bother. Yeah, that's it.
There's always special beautiful German words.
All the people from the Germanosphere who watch this, of which I know there are plenty, write the German word that describes what this is in the chat, please. Thank you. Marvelous. Yeah, it's really nice. And yeah, this isn't one of your specific symmetry images. This is one that's, well, there is a symmetry because you've got two perfectly framed workers lined up exactly in the middle. The symmetry of the roundel is there, but then around it suddenly it's like, oh wait, no, the photo's not been taken square on with the architecture. So it's nice. It's another way you're kind of playing with our expectations. I like.
Yeah, it's definitely the most imperfect image in there, but it's also I think in the description of the book it said I sort of described. With photography, for symmetry, you don't actually need the whole image to be symmetrical. If there's sort of elements or components or even the themes of symmetry, that in itself can also be as visually pleasing as a sort of fully symmetrical image.
Yeah.
Like we have here.
No, I love it. It's a really nice image. And again, yeah, I suppose I definitely like it because there's people at work, which I I always find images of people working,
which I appreciate.
Engaging. Yeah, I appreciate that because people work. Someone's got to be working, right? It might not be me. So yeah, I love that. It's really nice. And then we got what's quite nice. So this is actually something that I kind of want to talk about. So while we've got I don't know what's the name of the person performing ballet here on a DLR station.
This is Andrea.
Andrea. So yes. Andrea here is performing. Now you have one of the themes within the book is that you have quite a lot of people doing performance as part of your images, right? This is something that you love coming back to. You love bringing people into these spaces and almost kind of it's quite abstract because the idea of someone doing ballet performance on a DLR platform is quite if you suggested that to someone, they think, well, that sounds cool, but I wouldn't expect to see it normally. But you enjoy it. Tell us about is this just something you're like, oh, that would be cool, or tell us just kind of a little bit why you like coming. You keep coming back to this idea of abstract performance art in a kind of a public transport context.
Well, the sort of way that it started is as I sort of explored the London Underground, sort of wandering down the endless tunnels of passageways and staircases. You kind of begin to sort of see the impact that the human form has with its interaction with architecture. So if you imagine sort of a lone corridor going off into the distance and you didn't have a lone figure walking down the middle, suddenly the architecture highlights this one person walking down. And just the way that the structure of forms or the curves of walls, sometimes if someone curves in the same way that the wall curves or someone walks or matches the architecture, it then gives that architecture new meaning. And it's a sort of new meaning and people interacting with architecture, which is pretty fun. I was taking a symmetrical photo of this station, and it's a very pretty one. It's pretty when you get low down, but it's really easy to overlook. This is a Lewisham DLR. Oh, I should have made you guess.
Oh no, I know. Yeah, you should. I've missed opportunity.
I should have made
you should have got me guessing. I think it's worth. I mean, to describe what we're looking at here. Firstly, Andrea, right?
Yes.
Andrea is in a let's see, Dina does ballet. She would be able to tell me exactly what French word is describing this pose. But essentially is like shoulders forwards in almost about to take flight, which is relevant because the station canopies behind Andrea they absolutely form wings. Like they are wings behind her. And it looks like she's just about to take flight. It's a lot and flanked by two funny little DLR trains. It's classic Luke Agbaimoni. I love it. It's good.
It's pretty outrageous, and I love it. This is what I quite like. So it's sort of injecting a bit of sort of real sort of it's the sort of things that you wonder as you sort of look at architecture. You look at that and you go, oh, that looks a bit like wings. Look at the way those staircases are. They're very sort of, they look like pillars supporting something. and then your mind start to wander. And so what I try to do,
because the handrails on the staircase essentially follow Andrea's sort of ballet dress up. There's kind of almost like they're kind of it's actually one. She and the station are kind of one thing. It's brilliant. Also, the two fire escape. It kind of pointed out in green. The two fire escape things pointing. Kind of pointing up Andrea's armpits actually, but it's almost a little bit like they're lifting up. It's there's so much going on in this one. There's such an energy to it. They're pointing upwards in the way that Andrea's taking flight. I think this is brilliant.
Yeah, it's just as I sort of say, like as I sort of go around stations, I do see sort of real fun parts of the architecture. Like even if you go into in Southwark Station, you've got these really nice escalators, which are like a circle that's been cut out. They just sort of go up. And when you go in there, you cannot help but think that you're in a spaceship being sort of teleported into the sort of main...
I think Southwark is in amongst these photos, actually. I think there's a Southwark, because I occasionally would go from... I'd occasionally do that weird journey where you essentially arrive at Southwark Station, having never taken the tube, but just walked from Waterloo East. You know, that weird long walk you do that you end up coming out of Southwark Station. I think I've done that, and that. There's an image of that, and you're right. It's so space-like. There's this. It's almost like it's almost Thunderbirds. You know, your Thunderbird 3 kind of being launched up through. Yeah, absolutely. And again, with this one, it's not just the shapes. You've got tactical red ballet. Costume in that you've got the flowing shapes on the DLR trains. You've got red lines on the platform as part of the station markings.
Yeah.
And then the red dress. It ties in very nicely. And then the other things to pick out are the things that are both symmetrical and non-symmetrical. So you've got two different, just random adverts on the side.
Exactly. Luckily, the colours weren't too off-putting. And then you've got the can you see the person getting on the train?
Oh yeah, I haven't even noticed, but yeah, absolutely, just someone getting on the train. But
so it's imperfect. And something that's very annoying is so behind Andrea you can see the ticket machine.
Yes.
What would you call it? Oyster card.
Yeah, it's like the tap in, tap out thing.
Tap in. So what's annoying? Luckily her dress covers it, but the pattern is the same rather than reflective.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so the circle is the same on both machines.
The circle's the same on the both sides.
And they've also been placed not quite the same position in relation to the station as well. It's like one of them's like an inch out. So
it's actually
these little
that line doesn't run perfectly in the middle either.
Yeah.
And so to get the shot, it needs to be slightly imperfect.
Yeah, actually, this is where it requires you to actually be like, right, well, actually, if I have everything perfect on that side, the other imperfection becomes too obvious and it distracts. Yes. So you're balancing all the slight imperfections to get the It's good. I like it a lot. So we shall press on our odyssey through the London Underground and various TfL bits and pieces. We shall leave Andrea dancing at Lewisham, and we shall jump to another station actually, which is now I can't remember exactly which of these stations it is, but there aren't that many that are like this. So this is on the Northern Line. It's one of the stations that's out on the... Where will it be? It'll be kind of on the... down towards the... It's the ones that are beyond Kennington, right? There are a couple that are like this, where you've got a central island platform at no barrier at all. You've got a single bore sort of station with the two tracks either side of an island platform. Kind of a bit like old-fashioned metro style. And some of them have quite nice retro fittings all over. And this one's got kind of quite a retro feel to it. But again, it's what this puts me in mind of, actually, this image. I don't think... Well, in fact, you definitely haven't because of the lack of distortion. But it looks a bit like a fisheye lens.
It does, doesn't it?
You've got this photo looking down the stairs along the station bore, and the two tube trains, with their perfect straight line, showing that there isn't a fisheye here because there's no warping going on. But it kind of has that almost bubble look. It's almost like a snow globe, almost. It's got something of the surreal about the dimensions, and then you look closely and you're like, oh no, the dimensions are parallel. But you step back and look at everything, and it's like, is this real? I like the effect. It's good.
It's great. I think it's sort of it visually showcases how narrow that platform
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. It's narrower than the trains that are flanking it, right?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's I've never been on this platform, so I'm being careful not to say the station now. I've never been on this platform during rush hour. So um have you got a guess yet? Have you got the guess for which station it is?
Is it? Is it one of the like Claphamy ones?
Yeah, go and guess one.
Yeah, I mean, is it Clapham Common? Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay.
It could either be Clapham Common or Clapham North.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Angel used to have a platform. It's not anymore, but Angel used to
Oh,
have
Angel used
that.
to have one. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. See, my London Underground. I know bits and pieces, but yeah, I'm by no means a London Underground nerd. So I'm kind of I'm essentially I'm probably a bit like in fact, no, I won't be. You'll be far more of a pro than I am. I'm a bit of a just like the bits that I know are like usually the bits that I'm often using. So often like I'm working way down to like South London quite regularly because I got my mother-in-law's down in Denmark Hill, and so I'll be traveling like in different directions
Oh,
to
that's a
kind of
lovely
do that
station, by
route.
the way, Denmark
Oh,
Hill.
lovely station. Yeah, it's nice.
Lovely.
I'm trying to think of what symmetry there is there because it's a bit of a
Some
higgledy piggledy one.
staircases, some of the
Okay,
staircases.
nice.
But I think in Denmark Hill, the architecture's the killer feature there.
Yeah, it's a really nice station, and
Yeah,
I quite like the new bit as well. Actually, I think they've done a nice
I
job on the new
do.
bit.
I like it too. It's very nice.
Yeah, some really
It's
nice
a good
picked out
station.
color, and yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, I like that a lot, and it's local. They've local. We've gone off on one about Denmark Hill Station, but it's a lovely station, and there's some lovely little local sort of picked out local elements within the architecture of the new entrance. It's really
Yes.
nice. Now they just need to do the old entrance, like the not the old entrance, the kind of old new entrance, like the slightly weird boxy entrance on the other side. Now needs the treatment that the new entrance on the hospital side got. Anyway, we digress. We're at Clapham Common. Two nice northern trains sat next to each other with barely a hair's whisper between them where the platform is. And thankfully, not many people on the platform at this point. But if this was a busier station, which it can be sometimes, then I'd be sweating a bit more because I always get unnerved at some of these stations because they.
I think it
scary.
can be. It can be pretty busy, this station. This was actually taken not too long after lockdown, which is why it was quieter.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think I still had to Photoshop an arm out or a leg or something.
Oh yeah.
So I sort of stood very still at the top, and no matter how hard I tried, there was always someone who would walk in front of a train. So I had to Photoshop.
Yeah. Oh,
there's an arm and a leg out.
So that's interesting. So it's worth maybe exploring that for a little bit. So with some of these, do you take an array of images so that you've got some things that you can help to? So for example, getting rid of an arm or a leg or a handbag, kind of going into shot and out of shot.
Yeah. So if there's like someone's arm who's just sort of, because a lot of these moments are just very quick. They're very brief moments, and you may get sort of a random leg flying into the screen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a working system, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so you just have to sort of edit it out. Most pictures don't really have it. The ones that I've sort of listed haven't had it, which is why I haven't said it. I'm very sort of honest with sort of how I create these images, because if you were trying to recreate it, you'd also encounter those
the same challenges of a bunch of people running about. Yeah, that's it. But it's interesting. But yeah, so you don't collage them, but you do have. So essentially, do you take when you do these shots? Do you do a burst as well when you take?
Yeah,
it?
I always take my camera in burst mode. It's a habit of mine now. Because you never know which. For sometimes
I was going to say, particularly where you've got in motion, which you do a lot, when you've got in motion shots, or you're wanting, for example, the shot of the bank station where you've got the doors perfectly central. Sometimes I remember last time some of those were in motion shots where you were. So essentially, you need the burst to make sure you've got the most central image of the train in motion. Yeah. Okay.
It's also a good trick on taking sharp shots. So if you're, as you press down on the shutter of your camera, you're creating a vibration, if you think about it,
yes?
So if you press down and you're doing multiple exposures, then the second and third shot are going to be sharper than that first shot.
Yes, because the wobble of you pressing... Yes, okay, yeah.
So that's the other reason why I like doing it, because you can get very sharp shots. I'm quite good at taking long exposures handheld. I can probably do up to 0.8 of a second.
Okay, yeah.
Which
in places where you've got
very
pointed
long.
light, low light,
long,
but little flex.
It is very difficult.
Oh yeah, long exposure is I mean, 0.8 doesn't sound like much. Yeah, so but it for a long exposure, that's that's enough for blur. But okay, right. So another joyous image. Again, I like this one because it looks wrong isn't the word I mean, but it kind of like you look at it, it's like no, that can't be right. The angles aren't quite right, and then you look closer, oh no, it is. And it's
when you
think
visit
it's
the
because of
station,
that
you'll
bubble
sit.
effect.
We walk down the stairs and stop and look at that from that point, and you'll sit and you go, "Yeah, that's so weird." And it's just that platform. Because that platform is so narrow and we don't see it anywhere else. It just makes it look surreal. Apparently, the Glasgow Railway looks a lot like this.
So that the Clockwork Orange, as it's affectionately
Oh,
called.
I need to visit that. It's so
you would
beautiful.
love it. It's such it's a joy. It's a joy. Both the old stations and most of them are like some of them have been very newly refurbished. Others have got some of the old vibes. Yeah, really nice. Well worth a trip to see that one. Also, some of the underground stations in Merseyrail are quite interesting, but in a different way. So yeah, the Clockwork Orange is quite like this style. But if you're wanting some of that underground intrigue, something like James Street Station, a couple of them in Liverpool are quite interesting. Anyway, we're going off on one again. Right, so now. Oh, I'm wrong. So I looked at this one, and this is the one that I thought was Southwark, but it's not. I've just realised this panelling is this Thames Link 2? Is this Crossrail? Is this Elizabeth Line panelling? Is this part of the Elizabeth Line here?
Yeah.
So we are to do the audio description. Well, I mean, where do I start? It's such again, you've got those light image, those phantasms that give it a circular symmetry here, because you've got those. I don't know. You can slice those circular shadows on the escalator, mean that you've got this sort of egg-shaped symmetry that completes the whole image, which is nice. And what's really nice is that on some of the pictures here, depending on what resolution you're looking at, some of the moire effects of the of the escalator platforms mean that you get the complete closure of the image circular. Anyway, I'm going off on one on digital imagery here. But so we are looking down, I think, but it can be quite difficult.
It is down.
We're looking down a set of a single escalator, not multiple escalators, just a single escalator, which is located. I'm guessing it's 3, and you're in the middle one, right?
Yes.
So it's 3, but actually it looks like it's just 1 because you can't see. You've taken the image from kind of down in the trough.
Yeah, so I've gone quite lower. I've gone lower down to add to the effect. Yeah.
And you're looking down, and it's one of the escalator shafts that's got the very long sort of well, it's not actually concrete, but it's sort of faux concrete paneling that looks like it's distorted and stretched to provide this sort of. It's almost like it creates this sort of whalebone effect. Actually, it looks a lot like the roof of Canary Wharf Station. So I don't know which station this is, but if you know the garden roof at Canary Wharf Crossrail Station, it's kind of almost that vibe, but it's just in the visual effect of the paneling, and then it goes into the sort of standard Crossrail stuff. Anyway, I like this a lot.
I think the Star Trek logo is what I see when I look at this.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, very much so. Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. The sort of the Nike swish, but symmetrical and on Jean-Luc Picard's chest. Absolutely, yeah. And again, this it's almost monotone, except the little warmth at the end of the tunnel, that little glowing yellow and orange at the end of the.
It's lovely. It's the reason why the picture isn't black and white. Sometimes when you've got really sort of monochromish colors, and then you've got this slight hue just at the bottom of warmth, and it's like it just gives the intrigue of wanting to go through the image into the bottom.
Yeah, it's really nice. I like that one a lot, and you can see, and it's kind of punctuated quite nicely by some of the kind of air vent shafts, kind of air vent type patterns at the top, maybe, or so it's just sort of it's quite a textural image. There's a lot of textures going on. So the colour is quite muted, but the textures are quite something.
Architecturally, this should actually get you quite excited because it's really well put together, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You've got the brushed steel the kind of effect of the escalators. You've got that sort of ribbing of the footway of the steps of the escalator. You've got the kind of the dotted holes in various sizes of the kind of the classic Crossrail paneling that already Londoners have become familiar with, right? Like people are already kind of familiar with the Crossrail vernacular. Yeah, it's great. I love this one. It's really good.
Can you guess the station?
Ooh, no. I do. is actually
Go on.
now. Only because this is one that I've gone down a few times, and it could be this one, but maybe it isn't. Is it the Farringdon? Is it Farringdon?
No, see, the Farringdon one is special as well, but this is do you want me to say?
Yeah, tell me.
It's Whitechapel.
It's Whitechapel, okay.
Yeah, and I remember just going down it sort of when it opened, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty spectacular. Really sort of elegant, subtle, but well stated architecture. I'm not really used to this kind of finish in architecture in this country, and I was just blown away by how precise it was.
It's very nice, and it does typify that Crossrail vernacular that I think I think it's been very successful. I think it looks really good. I think they've done a very good job on the look of the whole system. It's really good. Now we've jumped to from quite muted colours to a vibrant splash of orange again in true Rail Natter style. In fact, because we're on. We're at an underground. We're at an overground station, hence the orange. We've got, and again, it's another one of these situations where I like this one because you're like, oh, this is perfectly symmetrical, and then you look and you're like, oh no, wait, the archway is not. It's not a perfect arch. Wait a minute, but how can that be? Because the door is perfectly central within it, and then you look and you're like, wait, is it? Oh no, and you start noticing these little things that actually, as soon as you start looking, it's like, oh no, wait, that's
Yeah.
So again, we're looking down some stairs. We have conveniently, because we've got banisters for kids or smaller people, and we've got the slightly taller banister. We've got 2 handrails on each side, so we've got these 4. They almost look like pipes. These 4 kind of pipes kind of going down. It's almost like Pompidou style. Kind of these 2 pipes going down each wall. We've got this kind of what I would describe as public swimming pool tiling, which is quite nice. I think it's a nice effect. It's kind of this grey-blue...
perfect description of the tiling.
Grey-blue tiling with an archway that pops out onto a platform. And you've got the kind of that classic TfL sort of hard iron, like that kind of cast irony or steel sort of footstep edgings as you go down, which creates a nice sort of pattern with the kind of the ribbed kind of tactile paving at the bottom. And then, of course, the bright orange doors. It's another classic. I like this one a lot. Tell us about this one. Firstly, where is this? Put me out of my misery. Where are we? It's not Whitechapel again.
You couldn't guess this. This is what I'd call the East London line, which doesn't exist anymore. It's Surrey Quays Station.
Okay. Yeah.
And what I like about this is it's just a nod to color choice. Yeah. So you've got the saturated walls with the lovely orangey handrails, and then you can see how they've matched that to the doors of the London Overground.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of trying to take this photo, and when I managed to, so this is a zoom in train, and I managed to take it as it's not as, it is quite hard because you always get people walking by, and I sort of got it as the train was slowing down. So, and I remember when I nailed the shot, I was just like, yes, that is so powerful, and it's almost like for me, it's like a nice sort of round of applause to the architects and the designers. It's how well conceived is that? It's like, you're walking down the stairs. Imagine if you saw that walking down the stairs.
It's like you're being beckoned. It's like you're being beckoned into the train, right?
Come on board of the train. Like, brilliant. That's lovely, isn't it? What a lovely welcoming that is
it's really nice. And the tiling pattern, they're small tiles. The little tiles you get. They're ones they're probably like an inch by an inch sort of size tiles, and they're kind of that slight different shades, but all kind of lighter or darker blue greys. Very muted, but very pleasant. It's very clean, nice airy space with as you say, the orange beckoning you into this. Towards the train, like, come down to this train that's waiting for you, and it says a lot for, as you say, design, color, but also for the importance of integration between the infrastructure and the train. For lots of the rail network, 2 different companies or multiple companies, the train is owned by one company, the staff on the train are another company, the staff on the platform are another company, and the station itself is leased by one company and owned by another company. And it's like all of that, you need to kind of put all that to one side, which is relevant because as we're recording this, Mark Harper is giving his announcement about GBR, I'm seeing people pinging me about it. So relevant to that is, forget all that. The important thing is integrating across all those boundaries. Whatever the boundaries are, it shouldn't matter to passengers. Passengers want an integrated system. They want this integration. They want to feel like track and train, station and platform and train are one part of their journey, one part of a process. And this image captures it wonderfully. It's really nice.
Thank you.
I love it. You get me very excitable now because it's such. It just always these images evoke for me so many things that are important about creating travel opportunities for people. Now here is a fun one.
I love this
now,
one.
So where do I describe this before you've laughed? Tell us about this image first, and then we'll describe it. Tell us about the image.
Oh no, you should describe it.
Okay, I'll describe it. I'll do my best to describe this because there's a lot going on in this image, and I mean that in a good way. There's a lot of fun stuff going on here. So the first thing I would say is curves. This is a photograph with all manner of curves in it. Firstly, I'd say that there are several features here. I'd say the first feature is that you have a waiting shelter that is got this high curved glass, and within it a wonderful looking curved bench. And from that you go,
gorgeous.
Yeah. It is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. You go, you'll say, okay, curves are the name of the game here. Then that's punctuated by a gorgeous and quite unique looking. I've not really seen a clock like this before. It's a handed clock with red hands on the clock, and it's got like Victoria line color. Actually, it's got blue and light blue, so it's kind of like two different shades of blue, with the dashes for the 12, 3, 6, 9 are all like interchange station black circle with the white, and then the intermediate hours are all like the kind of the simple tube station type thing. So that's fun. I like that. I've never seen a clock that before. That's really nice. You've got the two customer information boards, which, as is often the case with digital photography, you can't see what's on them because they refresh in a weird way. But I quite like that because it gives this a slight other world. It's this slight like liminal space feeling of like, is this a real time or So there's that, and then you've got an S-Stock District Line train, and then next to it you have a little what I'm guessing is, actually I can see it, I can read it, it's a Piccadilly line train, and then next to each other this is Hammersmith.
Yes, well done. Yeah, you can see the roundel.
I'm cheating. At no point was this me knowing. This was me reading it off of the roundel at the side. Yeah, you're right, Luke. I cheated. And this is fun because architecturally you've got a lot going on. So actually a lot of that glass paneling, the tall glass paneling, is quite new, because you can see by the way it's studded in, it's got that new sort of look to it. The benches are also new, but somehow the glass and the benches give that that interwar vibe to it. They kind of give it that Holden-esque sort of view. Above that, you've got this sort of circular roof that again is kind of a newer age. This part of Hammersmith Station is fairly new. It could do with a bit of a hose down, but it's a pretty new station. And again, it's perfection, imperfection. It's symmetry, it's imperfections, it's asymmetry. You've got two quite different sized trains. You have a teeny weeny tube train on the right, and then you got the big old S-Stock on the left.
It's hilarious, the sort of visual comparisons, because I think until you actually see the trains together, you don't actually appreciate how different in size they are. It's hilarious. The other one's like tiny.
It is so small. It looks almost silly there. It's just sat kind of doing its thing. It's funny. So yeah, again, this one it's just kind of picking out, but this one has it's a very strong visual symmetry, and yet the more you look at it, the more you go, oh, nothing's the same. Because it's totally different on one side to the other side. The beam strut sizes are different, but actually it just, the colours are different. But actually it just shows, it's exactly as you described. Symmetry isn't just about the perfect symmetrical image. It's about, in a way, it's picking on the fact that the human eye does lots of deliberate pattern recognition that maybe isn't there. Yeah. So long as you've got features, colours, so in this case, the red at the front of the train, and then the trains next to each other, and then with the clocks, the customer information system, and the curved waiting shelter, your brain goes, this is a symmetrical image. Symmetry, even though actually you look closely and like, oh no, it's not. It's very clever. I like this.
Yeah, it's almost like visual humor. This
it is. Yeah,
I really enjoy it. I enjoy it because I think I don't know what I was aiming for when I was taking the shot. I think if you take it at night, it'll be more symmetrical because you'll see less noise.
Yes.
But I sort of took this in the day, and I lined up the trains, and I was like, "This is perfect," because it's. I think I even named the picture little and large because
Yeah, yeah.
it's amusing, and but the architecture here is very visually pleasing. They've kind of somehow sort of, for me, I love that clock, and I love the curved bench and the curved glass. It made me feel sort of almost sort of Art Deco about it, even though it's not.
Yeah, it does,
Yeah,
absolutely. It has that vibe to it, doesn't it? It's
yeah.
lovely. It's very nice. Now, once again, so this is again we come back to this theme of human motion within the space, but also again you're being very cheeky here because you have this. You've chosen one of kind of one of these sort of, I'm guessing late 20th century, maybe is it like 80s maybe, sort of tiling patterns. It's got red, it's got green. I'm guessing it's a station where the district and the central line meet, or is that a brown? Maybe it's the Bakerloo. I'm not quite sure. But it's got that. It's got, in a way, they've got this elbow. The two patterns kind of are running flat along the tiling, and then they angle up, and the tiling goes up about 30 degrees, meets the other one, and then kinks back down again, and creates this kind of elbow, this sort of little sort of pyramid shape. And then your dancer here, who is maybe a dance. What's her name?
Andrea again.
It is. Oh, it's Andrea again. Oh, so
Yeah.
but this time Andrea is looking like she's in contemporary dance mode rather than ballet. Andrea's doing she's doing the pyramid shape, and it's again you're emulating that motion. It's kind of it's a playful kind of work, but I enjoy it very much. And again, it's got these scuffs. I love the scuffs. Like the scuffs on the kind of the sort of floor tiling that's quite satisfying. I like that a lot. So again, tell us about this picture. Also, where the hell it is. Tell us about this one.
This is at Piccadilly Circus.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and one of my favourite sort of tiling patterns in the whole London Underground network. And I remember this is probably one of the first photos I took of a dancer on the sort of London Underground, because I remember sort of watching pedestrians walking across this sort of, well, this is bridging over a platform, isn't it? And I think towards the end, for some reason, the pedestrian crossed their legs or something, and it was fascinating watching that shape being completed with the tiling leading to the person with their legs being crossed.
I see. Yeah.
And so that's why I then thought, the idea of getting dancers or gymnasts to sort of help me to sort of
punctuate these shapes, this cross. Yeah, because you're right. The pattern crosses over. To kind of describe it, crosses over, and Andrea's crossing her arms. She's got this sort of pose that it's almost like there are now 3 X's in the image, right? You've got the 3 crossing patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's quite nice to sort of show how architecture lends power to other aspects in the scene. So you've got this permanent structure which is giving power to the moving elements.
Yeah.
You'll have any person walking in the center line of that image will be given power by this structure with all the angles leading towards it. And this photo was taken to sort of enhance that motion, to make you sort of realize how the sort of pleasure I get of watching humans interact with forms, architecture, patterns, and shapes.
And you have an eye for it. I just, and again, it's power and motion. That the motion, which is funny for a public transport system where motion is absolutely the aim of the game, right? But it's funny that this, is it by? It's almost like it's by accident that the architect has created this, or is it? Because in a way, the dynamic nature of this tiling, which it's not like a completely out there tiling pattern. It's kind of an interesting geometric sort of choice, but it does elevate and create emotion, which is an interesting. It's an interesting and kind of it's a moving choice, a choice that kind of creates motion for a system that is ultimately all about moving people around. So I quite like that. It's really nice. And as I say in the book, there's lots of images of Andrea and people, and you kind of pick on this idea of motion, and Andrea's quite good at capturing. I mean, she's very. Do you sort of say, "Oh, do you like move her arms around," or does she go, "No, I'm going to embody the tiling pattern and just kind of go for it"?
I normally have an idea, so I'm quite. I'll sort of study. She'll sort of send me sort of shapes and angles or stuff.
Okay, yeah.
That sort of people can create, and then we'll look at architecture and sort of, that kind of works here. Let's explore that idea.
Yeah, okay.
So we won't have a complete idea, but we'll
that's
have
interesting. So it's almost like a collage of like she sends you some ideas from motion that she sort of thinks are visually interesting, and things that and then you have your mental library of shapes that you know about, or then you go and explore other new shapes on the system, and then pair the two. I see.
Yeah,
a little peek behind the curtain there, real natural listeners and viewers. So from this movement to okay, yeah. So the reason I've gone everyone is because we're back on Crossrail, and we are at Paddington Station. So Paddington Low Level, as some people refer to it as, the Crossrail platforms at Paddington. Now I've chuckled partly because I know that we're at the end of our list of photos, which in a way is very sad because we could do this all evening. But the reason I've chuckled is because of some of the inspirations that you've had from this fantastically sci-fi looking space, and it's no coincidence that the Jubilee Line extension kind of has some of, or rather, let's flip it the other way around. Crossrail pulls from some of the aesthetic influences that were established as part of the Jubilee Line extension, right? And Canary Wharf Station, the Jubilee Line station, Canary Wharf, was used in Rogue One as part of a set for Star Wars, and it's no coincidence, therefore, that you look at some of the Crossrail stations and that sci-fi aesthetic has absolutely carried forwards. So yeah, the big lighting domes that almost look like eyes. Actually, they've almost
goggly eyes.
They look like googly eyes. They do.
Staring at you. Yeah.
I'll have to tell Tim that because he loves shoving googly eyes on things. As soon as I tell him that these look like googly eyes, I think he'll have a field day working out how to take a video with googly eyes on these. Anyway, yeah, he'll have fun with that. But so googly eyes to one side, we've got these sort of square panels, the dark circular shape with interesting pinned patterns into them down to the central light, with then the uplight, of course, as well, which creates the white surround. You've got the glass shield of the escalators, but the escalators in true Luke Agbaimoni style, tube mapper project style, they symmetrically rise up out of the station. You've got the flooring, and then you've got the platform edge doors with two trains making their way through on their merry way. Now, firstly, tell us about. So we talked a bit about Crossrail already, but I mean, the architect again, Paddington Station architecture it's quite a bold statement, isn't it? This station.
Oh, it's lovely. I remember coming to this station, and it just put a big smile on my face. Yeah. I loved it. It was like I was like, they're not being subtle here, are they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And absolutely. So you sort of this big, bold statement. And the first thing that sort of popped into my mind, as we were talking about the sci-fi feeling, was I couldn't get Doctor Who out of my mind. All I could think of was Doctor Who. And my first thought of Doctor Who actually was the texture of the Daleks.
Now
so the Daleks are, here we go. And so
here he is.
I had to create an image of it because I just remember the sort of patterns of the Dalek, and the goggly eyes made me. So I took a toy Dalek to the station, and I had to take a picture of it in front of the stairs because I just thought it was just really amusing. And I remember the staff sort of were looking at me take the picture. They were like, "Oh yeah, it does actually look a place where they would be home." It would be a perfect setting for a secret Dalek space station on Doctor Who.
It does have like
they would do as well, isn't it?
It's got that vibe of the Doctor Who films. Actually, it's got one of those big sets, with Peter Cushing being the Doctor. The Doctor Time Forgot, and those sets were all quite. They have this aesthetic, they're big, bold Hollywood, well, not Hollywood, Ealing Studio sets, but they were big, grand design pieces, and they had this sort of aesthetic, lots of shiny metals, lots of lit surfaces. Yeah, this is really fun, and I quite like. So what's funny is, and I know this is me deliberately segueing into the next image, which is, so we have our Dalek here with the image in the background, the station in the background, but also a not undeliberate design choice of the interior of the TARDIS is that it also has these like eye hole things. The TARDIS has always had these sort of eye hole things on the walls of the TARDIS, and so it also puts me in mind of the interior of the TARDIS. Which, if I jump to the next image, you've been having some fun here.
It's amazing, doesn't it?
So here is the TARDIS, and the doors open, and within that you see the enormity of the cavern of Paddington Crossrail Station.
It's so at place. Like
really
seriously, it's whenever you go into Paddington, just think that you're secretly in Doctor Who's TARDIS. That's where it's.
That's it. And to be fair, you'd expect there must be the TARDIS is almost infinitely large inside, so you'd almost they must have lobbies like this somewhere, you know, and with all the different architectural styles. What was it? The Doctor said that basically like their decision of where their console is it's almost like a desktop skin. It's like a desktop theme, and so all the other ones are parked somewhere else within the TARDIS. I like the idea that within the TARDIS somewhere is this lobby, this enormous cavernous lobby that you use to get to some other part of the TARDIS. It's marvelous. So yeah, that's a fun one, that with the stars behind, and I think it's a fun way because we've talked about the beauty and the seriousness and the interest and the intrigue, but also lots of these images are fun. They're fun, energetic images. They're a delight to look through, and it typifies it as you had a play with this one at Paddington. Luke, yeah, right. So we will do some plugging momentarily. Before I progress, I'm going to say that. As ever, this is available in audio-only format, so please do, thanks for everyone for listening, please do a little review or a little star review button, because it helps, apparently. Apparently, the technologists tell me that these things help, so please do that, and thanks for listening. Patreon.com/GarethDennis to support more of this happening. PayPal.me/GarethDennis for abuse, suggestions, like loose change, that sort of thing. And for the chat, hello everyone in the chat, GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord to continue the chat ad infinitum and for exclusive fun bits, particularly if you're a Patreon person. We must say, go and get London Underground Symmetry Imperfections, the Tube Mapper project. Go and get Luke's latest book. It's a delight. In fact, I'm going to go big face here. In fact, I'm not going to go big face. I'm going to get both of our faces up, because fish this down from up here and just look, here it is. Here it is, and it's beautifully laid out. So here's you got
London Bridge, which also could be a Star Trek. Nice. It could be a film. I could imagine I need to get a shot of someone dressed up as Darth Vader or a stormtrooper.
Yeah, that vibe of someone storming down a corridor, and then I shouldn't give more away, but it's a beautiful book. It's very nicely done, with just sort of lovely minimalist. But there's the Chiswick part. It's lovely. It's really nice. It's a beautiful book. There we are. See, look, lovely book. And it's been sat in pride of place for quite a few episodes now. Well, since I did my rearrange, so it's going to continue sitting up there.
Pride of place. Thank you kindly.
No, honestly, you can. It's available on all good wherever you buy your books. You can even get it from the Amazon people, but ideally go find an independent bookstore.
Yeah, you can find it there, or I sell a signed version on my website, TubeMapper. .com. So I always forgot. And then I'm on Instagram and
yes, absolutely. Go find Luke on Instagram, because there is more of this. There is so
I try to post daily. Yeah, it's just I enjoy sort of exploring stations. I haven't even got all my visual puns on here. I'll have to do a visual pun special, because it's something I enjoy.
Maybe a Christmas special, a visual pun, a puntastic special. Yeah, absolutely. So that's absolutely go pick up the book. It's wonderful to enjoy yourself or to hand on as a gift. It's a delight. Next week is episode 156, which is so this episode is going to be what's happening at the National Rail Museum, and we have a sit down chat, a fairly brief chat, but we cover quite a bit of ground with Charlotte Kingston, who is head of deck design, engagement, and communications. I think I might have got that wrong. Charlotte's recently had a promotion because she's brilliant and rightly been placed to be in charge of many things. Anyway, so episode 156, what's happening in the National Rail Museum? That is next week. Oh, it only really remains for Luke and I. I mean, Luke, thank you so much for starters. Just a delight.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy your take on my images and how you explain them, it always puts such a smile on my face.
I'm glad. Well, it puts a smile on my face. They're a delight. The images are a delight to enjoy and absorb, and hopefully everyone who's watched and listened. I mean, okay, audio only might have been a challenge for you, but interesting. I'd be interested for someone to like sketch what they've heard from us.
Oh, that would
like
be
what
fantastic,
each image is
wouldn't-
from sketching it. Yeah, that could be good. But for those of you watching in the visual element, I hope you've enjoyed this. But as much as Luke and I have, or certainly as much as I have, Luke. We'll have to have you on for the Puntastic Christmas special at some point. That's what we have to do next. It only remains for both of us to sort of bid all of you fine listeners and viewers a farewell. Cheerio, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.